Good afternoon, everyone. Today's scripture is taken from the book of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent to them Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find them, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. This is the word of God.
Thank you, Kali, for the time, and Ayang for the clear reading of the word. Also, thank you, Tinyi and Christina, for covering me in your prayers. With your prayers and the prayer of the church, I will just go into the word. And I thank God at the outset for the opportunity to preach His word again, for the opportunity to examine my own heart and my mind from His word. It is always refreshing to read the word from the perspective of preaching, because it brings us closer to the truth of His word, to a point where we can worship Him closely. So I thank God for the opportunity. The passage has been read out to us. It's from the book of Matthew, and Matthew Gospel has been chosen specifically for our worship today. Why this topic, the worship of the wise man? For that, I want to introduce Matthew, and then not so much of Matthew, but the background context where Matthew presented the worship of the wise man. The Gospel of Matthew was written, as many scholars would say, basically or primarily to the Jewish people, the Jews. He wanted to say that we people are chosen to be a light to the world, to be a blessing to the world. But let us not take pride in our identity as a chosen people and look down upon others as Gentiles, somebody who have no idea of what holiness is, what true God is. Let us not look down upon them. That salvation has been planned by God right from the beginning, and salvation is for all, for every nation, for every people. And that we can see in the first chapter of Matthew itself. When you read chapter 1, has this genealogy of Jesus. And then interestingly, you see 4 names, or at least referring to 5 names of women. And then I realized that these 4 women who have participated in the genealogy of Jesus are quite unusual characters. First is that of Tamar, a Gentile, a Canaanite, who had this relation with her own father-in-law, you will see that. You have, who is that? Bathsheba, the lady with whom King David committed adultery. Most probably she was also not a Jewish, probably Hittite, because her husband was a Hittite. Then we have Rahab, again a Canaanite, not a Jewish. And then we have also this Ruth, a Moabite, from the land of Moab. Moab and Canaan, the Moabites and the Canaanites, were seen as sworn enemies of Israel, people or nation who resisted the plan of God. But here, Matthew was trying to say that, look, right from the genealogy, you will see that other nations are partaking in the birth of Christ, preparing the way for the Christ to come. Don't you realize that? He was pointing, I think, to that, because normally in the tradition, when they were writing down the genealogy, they will not include the name of women, and Matthew has done that. I think that's for a purpose. Jumping on to the conclusion, the Matthew chapter 28, here again he says, take the gospel, and Jesus says, and Matthew wrote, to all the nations of the world. So he had in mind to present to the Jewish people that, look, salvation is not for us only. Right from the beginning, God has planned for all humankind. That is how he presents, and look at the end. Jesus is telling us to do that. And this Jesus I present to you. The gospel is regarded by most scholars somewhat as the hinge that connects both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Matthew has quoted passages, verses from the Old Testament maximum number of times compared to other gospel writers. He did it the most. So again now, said that we move on to chapter 2. Having introduced all these unusual women, the characters, whose, from today's perspective, whose identity and whose moral characters were questionable, now he introduced this wise man from the east, again, who were not Jewish people, who were not, who were Gentiles, who were not the chosen people. Then who are these wise men? Matthew recorded them as the Magi. And it is from here that I want to take us back to the Old Testament. The word Magi, historians and scholars would say that got the first mentioned or used by historians in the inscription of Darius the Great. We know who Darius was. He lived during the time of Daniel, the Magi. Now, that means it was recorded, the term Magi was recorded in the chronicles of the Persian civilizations or the culture or the history. Before that, before King Darius was King Nebuchadnezzar, who came and took the Israelites captive. He took them to Babylon as captives. And we know that Daniel and his friends were there in that city, chosen to become trained and chosen to become administrators, highly IAS officer kind of people in the land, in that land of Babylon, foreign land. And we saw that they were outstanding. They were outstanding. And when there was a situation when Nebuchadnezzar had a strange dream and he challenged all the wise men, the Magi, to interpret, not only tell the dream and interpret, the wise men were perplexed. They were so perplexed they could not do it, and this is what they said. Those who get knowledge by using magic, those who get knowledge by using magic have never been asked to do what you are asking us to do, O King. And those who study the heavens haven't been asked to do it either. That means the Magi. They are kind of astrologers, they are kind of interpreters, skilled in interpretation of dreams. They are more like magicians also in some sense. But they are of that specially trained people who are asked to bring insights and explanation into unusual, mysterious kind of a situation. And we saw later on that Daniel could do that, interpret the dream, and please the king so much that king in Daniel 2:48 says, then the king put Daniel in a position of authority. He gave him many gifts. He made him ruler over the city of Babylon and the towns around it. He put him in charge of all its other wise men, the Magi. Daniel even enjoyed the favor of, later on, King Nebuchadnezzar was succeeded by Darius the Great, so much that Darius made him one of the 3 administrators of his kingdom again. He was planning to make Daniel like the prime minister, okay? But the other 2 administrators got jealous and reported wrongly to the king, and something happened. We all know the story. Daniel was put into the lion's den, and God delivered him from the lions. And after that, this is what Darius had to say. The king Darius wrote to people of all nations, no matter what language they spoke, he said, may you have great success. I order people in every part of my kingdom to respect and honor Daniel's God. He is the living God. He will live forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His rule will never end. This is what King Darius had to say about the God of Israel. Later on, Daniel had more visions. An angel of the Lord came and helped him, in fact 2 times, to interpret his dreams, which are about the coming kingdoms, rise and fall of kingdoms till the final kingdom, the Messiah, the reign of Messiah will come. And here in Daniel chapter 9, verses 25, 26, and more, if you read it, you will see something like this. Here is what I want you to know and understand. The angel, somebody was standing near him and told him this. There will be 7 weeks. Then there will be 62 weeks. The 7 weeks will begin when an order is given to rebuild Jerusalem and make it like new again. At the end of the 62 weeks, the anointed king, probably we as believers understand this to be the king. The anointed king will come after rebuilding the Jerusalem wall and the temple. Jerusalem will have streets and water system when it is rebuilt. You know, it was during the time of Roman Empire, and they have built great roads, streets, and the management of water and every sanitation was excellent. I think Daniel was referring to that during the time of Persian kingdom. But that will be done in troubled times, Roman Empire probably. After the 62 weeks, the anointed king will be put to death. The anointed king will be put to death. What a contrary. Hoping for a Messiah, and it says he'll be put to death. His followers will desert him. His disciples will desert him, Daniel writes. And everything he has will be taken away from him. The army of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the temple. Again, we know that the Jerusalem walls were broken down. Jesus also prophesied the same thing. And also the temple was destroyed in AD 70. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end. War will continue. It was there until now. Till now we have wars. The Lord has ordered that many places will be destroyed. Prophecies. I think that was 600 years or so before Christ, and all these were fulfilled during the time of Jesus. And when Jesus was preaching some later part in Matthew, people were asking, when will the end time comes? Jesus was telling about the signs of the end time, and he says, as has been prophesied by Daniel, everything will come. everything will be fulfilled. So Jesus clearly is familiar with the prophecies, with the visions of Daniel, and he was there to fulfill the interpretation. And building up on that, he goes on to say that kingdoms will come and fall, but I will come back again. Daniel was shown another dream in chapter 7, 13 and 14 I write, in my vision I saw one looked like a son of man. He was coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the eternal God. He was led right up to him, and he was given authority, glory, and kingdom. People of all nations, people of all nations, no matter what language they spoke, worship him. His authority will last forever. It will not pass. His kingdom will never be destroyed. This was also exactly the thing that King Darius confessed or professed. It was recorded by Daniel again. Here, the word Son of Man is very interesting because this is the name chosen by Jesus himself to describe him. For the Son of Man, he calls himself in the whole narratives in the gospel, the Son of Man. He doesn't call himself Jesus or this and that. He keeps referring to himself the Son of Man. And that was the only thing he was called as the Son of Man by him and not by any others in the gospel narratives. No one came to him and called him the Son of Man. So Jesus deliberately chosen this phrase, this identity, the definite description from Daniel. It's interesting. And the connection is that of Matthew. The Son of Man was used by Matthew the maximum number of times again. And in verse 9 of the same chapter 7, we also use the phrase, the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days, the song we learn and sung today, which, if we were to give an interpretation, means before days were. Before the creation of day and night. Ancient of Days means before the creation, means Jesus was there before the creation, before time and space were created. Similar description about the Ancient of Days is found in the book of Revelation again. Revelation 1, 14, 15, it says, the one who is seated on the throne is with snow white hair and blazing eyes. The same description is snow white hair and blazing eyes seated on the throne. It was there in the book of Daniel. And now in the book of Revelation written by John, the same description was there as the Ancient of Days. Then the authority, power, and greatness of all the kingdoms on earth will be taken from them, and all their head will be given to the holy people of the Most High God. His kingdom will last forever. Every ruler will worship and obey him. At the end, this is what the angel of the Lord told Daniel. Daniel 7:27. We have just seen that Daniel was the chief, the person in charge of all the wise men. The wise men. I think Daniel recorded these things and has given this instruction to the wise men. So the Magi, as we know, we believe, refers to these people, the scholars who have come from the Mesopotamian area or the civilization, including these Babylon, Assyrian, and other pockets of Mesopotamian civilizations. In other words, Matthew is trying to connect these Magi. See, these people who have come from the east, probably they were reading the works of Daniel, the prophecies. And many scholars will even suggest that there were Jewish study centers. People who are so interested to know about the Jewish culture, their values, and their gods. Because also the King Nebuchadnezzar and King Darius, the Great, wrote to all the nations within the empire about the greatness of this God and let no other people insult this God and these people. Their God is extraordinary. His kingdom will never be destroyed. His kingdom will never come to an end. And probably, after seeing so much wars and destructions and waste of resources, this and that, the scholars who have been longing for a time of peace, maybe waiting for this Messiah to come. The Persian kingdom came and gone. The Greeks came and gone. Now the Roman Empire. They may have been waiting. How long will these prophecies come true? And then suddenly a star appeared, and because these were the Magi, the people who read the sun, the moon, the things at the sky, the people who can read and interpret dreams, expert in those kind of things, probably they have seen the sign now. God directed them to Jerusalem, to the land of Judea. If they are reading more, scholars, if they're reading more, they must have even read the prophecies, the writings of Ezekiel, the writings of Isaiah, maybe even those of the wise thing of Solomon, the Proverbs of Solomon, and all these things they will come to know what great God the Israel nation worship, and about the coming kingdom which will never end. Matthew seems to be drawing our attention to this point when he narrated the journey, the story of the Magi. He wants to present Jesus and the kingdom of Jesus and the kingdom of heaven which Jesus proclaimed as the fulfillment of those prophecies. Jesus is the Messiah. And the kingdom he preached, the kingdom of heaven, is the coming kingdom we have been waiting for about 600 years after Daniel. After many of these prophets, Isaiah and all, now Matthew is telling us, look, people from afar have come to worship, to connect the points. In chapter 1, we have seen unusual characters, women who are not Jewish by blood. They have participated in the genealogy of kings. And now the wise men from a far off land coming to worship. That is the eye of Saint Matthew. Now in the text, the background context, now coming to the text, we have seen the passage, the story goes on. Now there are so many interpretations or speculation as to who these Magi actually were. Some say it's just wise men, but that's very vague. Some will say even and this is probably true, that there were priestly class or priestly group tasked to difficult things like mysterious elements, divine, this kind of thing. Probably it is also true. Some others will say even there are kings, like we three kings of Orient are. I mean, there are kings that are not just magicians, scholars, but there are kings with royal blood, with royal descent, and they have inferred this from the number of the gifts and the nature of their gifts, the gold, frankincense, and the myrrh. They are not gifts of ordinary people, but from high society, let us say, of royal in nature. But we will not go into those details. How many came? When I was telling Pastor, I'm thinking of preaching from this topic, the three wise men. He said, huh? 3 wise men? The number, whether 3 or more, is not very important. Whether there are these kings or priestly group of people or the wise men or the magi, not very important. But from what from the way I see it through the eye of Saint Matthew, I think these are scholars, wise people from those who are familiar with the values, with the belief system of the Jewish people and the Israelites. They have introduced all these things to the Babylonian culture during the time of exile. That is my point of view. Journey. Did the star really guide them? Can you imagine a star other than the sun in our system guiding them? Very difficult from a scientific point of view. Very difficult. Or was it a kind of illusion or just symbolic? The debate will go on, but I'm not really interested. Perhaps they are just like objects. God can do anything. Who can question the power of God to do anything? If He can guide the Israelites out from Egypt throughout their Exodus journey with pillars of cloud and fire, why not He can do this? He can, it's not it. The others, the whole world may not see, but these people can see. He can do that. He can guide them wherever He wants. God's plan cannot be thwarted by anybody. How long was the journey from the Mesopotamian, the Babylonian place to Jerusalem and to Bethlehem? Scholars have different thing to say, depending on where their point of origin was. Which part of Babylon, Persia? Maybe 500 to 700 miles, a very long distance. And given the transportation system and the large desert and wilderness they have to cross, they were saying that minimum 2 months to 4 months. It's a long, long journey. The journey of the Magi. I think we all have read, or most of us have read this poem of T.S. Eliot. It's not it. The difficulty of the journey. A cold coming, we had it. Just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp. The very dead of winter. I mean, think of the worst winter nightmare. And T.S. Eliot describes the difficulty. And that's not only the harsh condition under which they were traveling. There were dangers. And carrying all these gifts, gold, and I think they are not very safe. And yet, to worship the King of Kings, the Messiah, they wanted to see with their own eye and worship. And that's why they have sacrificed their life. Everything is at risk, but they undertook the journey nonetheless. They have taken it. Symbolic meaning of the gifts. People say gold symbolizes royalty, and we see a lot of that thing even in the Bible itself. Frankincense, normally they say in the tradition they use these as a kind of incense, a kind of perfume used for the purpose of worship in the temples. Beautiful aroma. So it indicates that it's something like worship. Christ, the Godhead of Christ has been recognized through this gift. The royalty that He is a king symbolizes by gold. And the myrrh, it's in the oil. Those days, it seems they use this oil to do the rites of the burial, the body. So, which symbolizes, according to scholars, humility and the death of Christ. Possible. We don't know the meaning, but these are beautiful symbolic meanings the scholars have given. Now, these three the wise men, the Magi, when they were traveling, first they went to Herod, Jerusalem, the palace. Obviously, that is where you will look. Not an ordinary place, because this is about the King of Kings. You will go there, and they couldn't find the baby boy, the baby king there. Instead, they find a very suspicious Herod, the king. Immediately, I think they got it that Herod is up to no good. when he privately called them and go search, fine, I will also worship. Then these are wise men. They could immediately guessed, oh, he's up to no good. They're up to no good. But interestingly, they were also warned by God in their dream not to go back to Herod. See, dreams. I think God communicates not only to people, the chosen people, but even to our forefathers, for our ancestors, forebearers, and to many other Gentile people whom we call Gentiles. I think God has never given up totally on them just because we have fallen. He cares, and I think He communicates with people of different races and nations. Our ancestors, they believed a lot in dreams, and these magi were dream interpreters. God warned them. God used star, which they study, dreams, which they study, their own area of expertise, to speak to them, to guide them, to lead them into worshiping Jesus. That also says something. If you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, if you're an artist, if you're a philosopher, if you're a mathematician, no matter what profession you are, even if you're a homemaker, where there will be a lot of need for love and patience and all compassion to build up homes, here is where God will use all this situation, your gift, to worship Him, to draw Him closer, to draw you closer to Him. I think that is what I get it from this. God will use anything to draw us closer to Him. And in this case, the stars and the dream. We know that they wanted to find out where the baby boy will be born. According to these Jewish scribes, the scholars, they say Bethlehem, not here. Interesting. They never went to worship. Though the scribes, the religious teachers, they have been waiting, but when they heard this, they just passed the information, became quite indifferent. No, not indifferent. In fact, Herod and all the Jerusalem were troubled by this. But they never went to worship. They never went to worship. It has been the best news of the century or of the millennium. It should have been like that for them. But I think they're so comfortable in their own state of affairs. It troubled them. The Magi, the wise men, were not disappointed when they could not find the baby Jesus in the royal palace. They went on towards Bethlehem. And when they saw the star which stopped right over Bethlehem, they were overjoyed. The passage says, overjoyed. And they went and found the baby Jesus lying in a manger, wrapped. They were not disappointed at all. They bowed down and worshiped. That's beautiful. With gifts, extraordinary gifts. They have not been deceived by cover of the book, by the palace. No. A true seeker and a true worshipper will not be deceived by the things of the world, by the decorations or what they have. No. Their eyes are fixed on what they are looking for, the baby Jesus, and the worshipped. The points to ponder. What are we to learn from this? I'm cutting it short. Well, Christmas is not just a festive season. It is a festive season, but it is not just that. We all know that. Sunday school students will know. It's not just a marker of our Christian identity. It is not about the palace, about royal celebration. It is not about pomp and show, how much of generosity I can exercise, how many people I can host for a feast. It is about humility. Humility, that is one thing we learn from the wise men and the birth of Jesus, and the desire to search for what that really truly matters. Not the things of the world. What truly matters about God and His plan, salvific plan for you individually and probably for your nation, for your people. Today, many of us, when we want to celebrate Christmas, why you want to celebrate? Why you wait for this season to come? You want to lavish yourself if you have money with so many things. For us, many of us, Nagas, no pork, no Christmas. It's not it. You will see Kohima streets. You will see Dimapur. These are places, especially Dimapur. A lot of fighting, a lot of drinking, a lot of this and that, extortion will take place. But Christmas, wow, in almost all the good homes, you will see stars and lights. That is what we want to do that. We want to decorate our homes with lights. Churches, residents, colonies, as if there is a kind of competition. And of course, I think in last year, they organized even a competition. Which colony will have the best decorations? Is Christmas about that? We are doing that, but is it about that? The wise men did not find Jesus in those decorated palaces, beautiful homes. No, they didn't. Remember that. Christmas is a time to use our minds, like the wise men did, to examine our hearts, to search God and His Word, His truths, which have been revealed to us. That is what the wise men were doing. Reading, looking for signs, following the signs, and then went on straight to the heart of worship. It is about the longing and hope for Christ and His kingdom to come. The hope for the return of Jesus and His kingdom to come. The kingdom which will never end. Christmas is not just about the celebration of His birthday, the birthday of Jesus. It's not really primarily about that. It is about the worship. Worship should be the heart of Christmas celebration, if at all it is to be celebrated. Worship is how we present ourselves before God. The whole Testament teaching about offerings, sacrifices, rituals are about all these things, cleanliness, uncleanness, how you present yourself before God. If you want to be a true worshiper, examine your heart. How will you present yourself before God? Purify, the Old Testament will say. Cleanse yourself and present yourself. How will you want to present yourself before God? It is to acknowledge the glory of God in worship. And that is how you do it, by bowing down, as the wise men did. They bowed down. Worship is not about taking a place of importance. No. Bowing down and worshiping God. What gifts do you have for Jesus this Christmas? How are you planning to celebrate Christmas? Will you celebrate if today, while it is not very important, your bank account or your phone mobile app, your GPay or your credit card is insufficient? Will you celebrate or not? Think about it. Once, a pastor of the church I used to attend, on Christmas Day, preach about Good Friday. Good Friday message on Christmas. It affected me so much that my joy of celebration, Christmas festivity was just taken away, killed, dozed off. The sufferings. He had something in mind to say, that when you celebrate Christmas, think about the love of Jesus. How much He did for you to express His love. That was his point, but it took away my Christmas spirit then. But now I gave a second thought. He made his point very clear. But today I want to add a little more than just His sufferings, which are symbols of His love. Think about the kingdom, about His kingdom. The kingdom which will never end, which will never be destroyed, where there will be love, peace, joy forever. Think about the kingdom. Look, fix your eyes upon Jesus upon his kingdom which will never end. That is our hope. That is our hope. So in short, Christmas is about the hope of the coming kingdom of heaven. The wise men, the Magi, came with that hope. Christmas is about the worship of Christ as the Messiah, the sovereign King and Lord, whose kingdom will never end. He is to be worshipped. It's about hope, it's about worship. Let us prepare our hearts to welcome and worship the King of Kings and Lord of Lords this Christmas. Amen.